Okay, next we're going to work out these questions that are cubic equations by factoring down at the bottom of your first page. So these three we're going to do together, and these two you'll try on your own. So the first one is already factored for you. So just like the quadratic equations, we're going to go ahead and set each of our factors equal to 0. Now you may notice that 2 minus 6x, technically you could take a 2 out of that if you wanted to, and there would be nothing wrong with that. But if we set 2 minus 6x equal to 0, we'll get the exact same thing as if we take the 2 out and then set what's left over to equal to 0. So you don't have to if you don't want to. So we'll have 2x equals 0, we'll have 1 plus 4x equals 0, and 2 minus 6x equals 0. All right, so if 2x equals 0, we can divide both sides by 2. So x equals 0. Over here, we can subtract 1 to the other side. So 4x equals -1. So x equals -1/4. And then right here, we could add the 6x to the other side. So 2 equals 6x. And then divide both sides by 6. So 2 divided by 6 is 1/3. So don't get it twisted and accidentally do 6 divided by 2. Make sure you divide the 6 from both sides. So your answers are 0, -1/4, and 1/3. So this is a cubic function, which looks kind of snaky when you graph it. So there's a 0 at 0. There's one at -1/4, which would be about right there, and one at +1/3, which would be about right here. So this graph actually looks like this, kind of like a slithery snake. All right, on number 2, kind of similar to the quadratic equations, we want to have all of our terms on the same side, and I like having the biggest term be positive. So I want 6f cubed to be my positive term, and I'm going to move the other 2 to the other side. So I'll have 6f cubed minus 5f squared minus 6f equals 0. All right, now if you can take out a greatest common factor, you should. And in this case, we can, because f will come out of all 3 of these terms. So we're left with 6f squared minus 5f minus 6 equals 0. All right, now we're gonna hope that this factors, and the quick way to check to see if it factors is 6 times -6 is -36. So you wanna ask yourself if there's any numbers that multiply to equal -36 and add to equal -5. And there are, -9 and +4. So we know that it'll factor. Okay, and you may have to kind of guess and check to get your correct factors here. So there's multiple numbers that will multiply to equal 6f squared. You could do 6f and 1f, you could do 2f and 3f. I usually start off with 2f and 3f. And then what we want to do is we want to guess and check some numbers that'll multiply to equal -6. And then we want to see if both of these factors would FOIL out so that we would get what we started with right here. So you may have to think a little bit, and I'm going to have to think a little bit too. But let's see, if we did, you may want to use a pencil for this part. All right, so let's think about some numbers that multiply to equal -6. Let's say that we did -6 and +1 right here. So if we tried that, we'd have 2f times 3f, which is 6f squared, 2f times -6, which is -12, and then we would add 3f. Well, -12f and +3f doesn't add to -5, so that's not going to work. All right, let's try a -3 here and a +2. So if we did that, we would have -6f and then +6f. Well, that's going to cancel out, so that's not going to add up to -5f in the middle. All right, let's try -2 here and +3 here. All right, so we would end up with -4 and +9. We're really close, but that's not quite it, because negative 4 plus 9 gives me positive 5. So what if instead I use positive here and negative here? So now I have 2f times 2 is 4f, and negative 3 times 3f is negative 9f. So altogether, I would have 2f times 3f, which is 6f squared, then 2f times positive 2, which is 4f, and then I would subtract 9f, which gives me negative 5f. And then negative 3 times 2 gives me the negative 6. So this is the correct factorization right here. So don't be afraid to guess and check. That's the way that we prefer that you do it, especially in upper levels of math. Some of you may have learned slide and divide. Some of you may have learned doing sort of an X thing to kind of get your numbers. Whatever works for you is fine. A lot of times guessing and checking ends up being the fastest way. So we'll set f equal to 0, so that'll be one of our answers. 2f minus 3 equals 0, so 2f equals 3. So f equals 3 halves. And then 3f plus 2 equals 0. So 3f equals negative 2. So f equals negative 2/3. There we go. So those are your 3 answers. All right, the last one that we're going to do is right here. This one's already got one factor done for us. We need to factor this one all by ourselves. So we've got 2x minus 4, and again, you might notice that you could take a 2 out of that. It's up to you if you want to. You're going to get the same answer whether you take the GCF out of that or not. And then this one right here will factor into x minus 3 and x minus 5. Okay, because negative 3 and negative 5 are two numbers that multiply to equal 15 and add to equal negative 8. So if I set all 3 of these equal to 0, then 2x equals 4, so x equals 2. If x minus 3 equals 0, then x equals 3. And if x minus 5 equals 0, then x equals 5. There you go. All right, that's how you factor cubic functions, so not too different from quadratics. This one right here, when you do this on your own, please keep in mind that 64x squared minus 9 is a difference of squares, where both of your numbers are perfect squares. So this right here is going to factor into 8x plus 3 and 8x minus 3, and then you'll have that 5x minus 10 right here. So keep in mind that's a different type of factoring right there that you probably saw in your summer packet, but not something that we've covered yet today.